had always loved the quiet town of Willowmere. Nestled between rolling hills and a silver river, it was the kind of place where time seemed to linger. She worked at the small library by the town square, her days filled with the soft rustle of pages and the scent of old books. Life was steady, simple, but sometimes a little too quiet. Ethan arrived one spring morning, his presence as sudden as the blooming of wildflowers along the riverbanks. He was a photographer, wandering from town to town, chasing light and stories through the lens of his camera. His first stop in Willowmere had been the old wooden bridge that stretched across the river, a place where the sunrise painted the water gold. That was where Amelia first saw him, camera in hand, standing as if he were trying to capture the heartbeat of the dawn itself. Their paths crossed again at the library. Ethan had come looking for books on local history, curious about the legends of Willowmere. Amelia, shy at first, helped him find what he needed. But what began as brief exchanges about folklore soon turned into longer conversations about art, dreams, and the lives they had once imagined for themselves. Ethan spoke of places he had traveled, mountains kissed by clouds, deserts glowing beneath starlight, while Amelia confessed that though she had never left Willowmere, she carried whole worlds within her imagination. As the weeks passed, the two grew inseparable. They walked by the river, lingered beneath the willow trees, and shared quiet laughter at the cafe where the owner always brought them a scented tea. Ethan began to photograph Amelia, not posed, but in moments when she least expected it. He captured her reading by the window, her hair illuminated by the afternoon sun, her smile as she tried, and failed, to skip stones across the river, the thoughtful way she gazed at the horizon, as though she could see something beyond the trees. Listening to her, a shadow began to fall over the mountains. Ethan's journey was never meant to end in Europe. He had an offer to travel abroad, to pursue a project that could define his career. The thought of leaving toured him, but so did the idea of staying. Amelia, though her heart ached at the thought of his departure, never once asked him to choose her over his dreams. The world needs to see through your eyes, she whispered one evening on the beach, the sunset burning crimson behind. The night before he was to leave, Ethan gave Amelia a small box. Inside was a photograph he had taken of her on the beach at dawn. The river shimmered in the background, but her face was the center of the light. So wherever I go, he said softly, I'll carry Willowmere with me. I'll carry you. Tears filled Amelia's eyes, but she smiled. Then promise me one thing. When the world feels too heavy, come back. The bridge will be waiting, so will I. Years passed. Letters traveled between them, sometimes often, sometimes after long silences. Ethan's photographs began appearing in galleries across the world, his name whispered with admiration. Yet in any picture he sent Amelia, there was always a still moment, a reminder of Willowmere. One autumn morning, Amelia stood on the bridge, the mist rising from the river. She had almost grown used to the rhythm of absence and hope. And then, just as the sun broke through the fog, she saw him. Ethan, older now, but his eyes still carrying the same spark of wonder. He walked toward her with the same hesitation of that first day, camera hanging from his shoulder. I kept my promise, he said, breathless. I came back. Amelia's tears blurred the golden light of dawn, but when Ethan took her hand, everything came into focus again. The river flowed quietly beneath them, carrying the past away, while the bridge stood strong, holding the weight of their years apart. Together, they stepped forward, no longer bound by waiting, but by the life they would build from that moment on. The bridge at midnight. Elena had always walked the same path home from work, across the old stone bridge that stretched over the quiet river. The bridge was not remarkable to most people, but to her, it was the place where silence felt alive, where the sound of flowing water seemed to whisper secrets meant only for those who paused long enough to listen. One evening in autumn, as the last light of the sun painted the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, she noticed a man standing by the railing. He had a sketchbook in his hands, his eyes fixed on the horizon as if trying to capture a moment that would vanish too soon. Their eyes met for the first time when she slowed her pace. He smiled, a quiet, thoughtful smile that reached his eyes. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, nodding toward the sky. Elena nodded. "It looks like the world is on fire, but in the gentlest way." He chuckled softly, flipping his sketchbook around to show her. The drawing was rough, unfinished, but she could see her own silhouette in the corner, him having noticed her before she even approached. From that night, their paths seemed destined to cross again and again. Sometimes he would already be there sketching when she arrived. Other times, she found herself waiting just to see if he would show up. His name was Adrian, a painter who had come to the city to find inspiration after feeling trapped in the routines of his old life. They began to talk about everything: art, books, music, dreams that seemed too fragile to share with anyone else. Elena, who had always lived quietly, found herself laughing more, daring to dream aloud. Adrian listened in a way no one else had before, and in his listening, she discovered parts of herself she had almost forgotten. One night in winter, snowflakes drifting around them like tiny lanterns, Adrian confessed, "This bridge isn't just a place for me anymore. It's where I found you. Every sketch I've made here has your presence in it, whether or not you're in the picture." Her heart pounded, the words clumsy on her lips. "And every step I take across this bridge feels lighter because I know you might be here." The world around them was cold, but in that moment, standing close beneath the falling snow, the silence was warm. He reached for her hand, and she let him hold it, as naturally as if their hands had always been waiting for that touch. Seasons passed, and the bridge witnessed it all: their laughter, their arguments, their quiet reconciliations. It became their meeting point, their secret world, the line between what had been and what could be. Years later, when Adrian's first art exhibition opened, the centerpiece was a painting of the stone bridge at midnight. The stars glimmered above, the river shimmered below, and two figures stood hand in hand at the center, faces turned toward one another. The title of the piece was simple: Home. Elena, standing beside him, squeezed his hand as tears filled her eyes. For she knew the truth. Love had not come to her with grand gestures or sudden miracles, but with the steady steps of two people crossing the same bridge, night after night, until the path became one. The whisper of falling leaves. Autumn had just begun in the little town of Ashbrook. The trees that lined the cobblestone streets were painted with shades of amber and crimson, and the air carried a crisp coolness that hinted at the coming winter. Among the townspeople, there lived a quiet young woman named Evelyn, a painter who loved nothing more than capturing the fleeting beauty of the seasons on her canvas. Every morning, she sat at the edge of Willow Park with her easel, brushes, and a steaming cup of tea. From there, she painted the world: children playing in the grass, old couples walking hand in hand, the way the sunlight filtered through the golden leaves. She thought she knew every corner of that park, until one morning she noticed a man sitting on the opposite bench, reading a book. His name was Adrian, a newcomer to Ashbrook. He had moved from the city after leaving behind a life filled with noise and restlessness. Books were his sanctuary, but lately, even they had failed to fill the quiet emptiness inside him. He came to the park because it reminded him of simpler times, of a world that moved slower than the one he left behind. For weeks, they shared the same space without words. She painted, he read. Yet in the silence between them, something gentle began to bloom. One morning, as Evelyn struggled to capture the way the light danced on a falling leaf, Adrian finally spoke. "You missed a shade," he said softly, his voice carrying a kind of warmth she hadn't expected. She looked at him, surprised, then at her canvas. "Which one?" He stood, walked over, and pointed. "Here, it's not just orange, it has a little gold in it, right at the edge." Evelyn laughed, the sound bright as wind chimes. "You notice details like a painter." "And you," Adrian said, smiling for the first time, "make the world look more alive than it feels." From that day on, they began talking. He would bring books, sometimes reading passages aloud while she painted. She would tell him stories hidden in her paintings, how a lonely tree reminded her of childhood, or how a sunset once made her believe in second chances. Slowly, the park bench became their meeting place, a bridge between two hearts that had long wandered alone. But love is never without fear. Evelyn, Susan's brush paused mid-stroke. Her chest tightened with both fear and hope. She turned to him, the dying sunlight painting his face in soft gold. "Adrian, what if I'm too afraid to fall again?" He reached for her hand, steady but gentle. "Then let me fall first, and maybe you'll see there's nothing to fear." In the hush of the evening, surrounded by falling leaves that whispered promises of change, she allowed herself to smile. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt the weight in her heart lighten. Seasons passed. Winter wrapped the town in white, spring brought blossoms, and summer warmed the cobblestones. Through it all, Evelyn painted and Adrian read, always side by side. Their love grew not through grand gestures or declarations, but in quiet mornings, shared laughter, and the tender silence that no longer felt empty. And so, in the little town of Ashbrook, two souls who once walked alone found each other, like autumn leaves carried gently by the same breeze, never quite sure where they were going, but certain they would go together.